It was my first night working as a security guard at the oldest cemetery in town. The place was ancient, with crumbling tombstones and statues covered in ivy. A thick fog hovered just above the ground, making it impossible to see beyond a few feet. The air was heavy with the scent of damp soil and rotting leaves. As I walked along the main pathway, the wind whispered through the trees, sounding almost like voices. I shook off the eerie feeling and kept moving. The job was simple: patrol the grounds, ensure no trespassers entered, and report anything unusual. I had no idea that this night would change my life forever. While making my rounds, my flashlight flickered. Annoyed, I smacked it, but then I noticed something odd: a grave without a headstone, just a mound of freshly disturbed earth. That didn't make sense. No recent burials had been scheduled. I stepped closer, and suddenly, the air around me grew ice cold. My breath became visible. Then, I heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from beneath the ground. My heart pounded. Was something moving inside the grave? I knelt, trying to make sense of it, when suddenly, the ground shifted. The soil trembled as if something was pushing up from below. A choked gasp escaped my lips. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my flashlight. And then, it stopped. Silence. The night returned to normal, except for my hammering heart. I turned and ran back to the small security office, locking the door behind me. Maybe it was my imagination, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I sat at my desk, trying to shake off the unease when the monitors flickered. The security cameras picked up something strange: dark figures moving between the graves. My pulse raced. I leaned closer, adjusting the screen. The figures weren't walking, they were gliding, their bodies barely touching the ground. One of them stopped, and turned its head towards the camera. A pale, sunken face with hollow black eyes stared at me. The lights in my office flickered. A deep whisper echoed through the room. "You shouldn't have found the grave." I spun around, but no one was there. Determined to prove I wasn't losing my mind, I grabbed a shovel and returned to the grave. If there was something beneath, I had to know. The moment my shovel touched the earth, the ground groaned. It wasn't just soil, it felt alive. Then, a hand shot out. A skeletal, rotting hand. I fell backward, terror paralyzing me. The dirt trembled, and the shape began pulling itself free. A corpse, its skin stretched tight over jagged bones, mouth twisted in an eternal scream. Its eyes were empty sockets, yet I felt it watching me. It opened its mouth, and let out a shrill, unnatural wail. I bolted. My feet barely touched the ground as I sprinted through the cemetery, breath ragged. Behind me, the sound of scraping bones and shuffling footsteps echoed. The thing was following me. Graves blurred past as I ran toward the exit. The gates loomed ahead, but the second I reached them, they slammed shut. A cold hand gripped my shoulder. I turned, and everything went black. I woke up at dawn, lying in the same spot where the grave had been. But now, there was no sign of the disturbed soil, no skeletal remains. The grave was gone. Shaken, I rushed to the cemetery's records office. After hours of searching, I found an old, yellowed document. It detailed a burial that was never meant to happen, a gravedigger who had been murdered and buried in an unmarked grave as punishment for a terrible crime. The legend claimed that his soul could never rest, and that anyone who found his grave would be claimed by him. That night, I quit my job. But as I walked past the cemetery one last time, I saw it, the unmarked grave, back in its place, waiting for the next unlucky soul.